You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi guys, and thanks so much for coming back to the podcast. This is Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. I am Mighty Blue, just back from my own latest midlife crisis, when I tried, unsuccessfully yet again, to cope with altitude on the John Muir Trail. The previous few weeks' episodes were front-loaded prior to my departure, but this is me, back with my tail between my legs, but raring to go with these full-length episodes. With great guests, a terrific catch-up with Katie, yep, she's still heading north, and a new book for me to read at the end. Oh yes, I also have an idea that just came to me yesterday, and I'm still working out some of the details, but I'm going to tell you about that soon. Our guests today are a family who I've been watching in kind of awe most of the year. The Suttons, Dad Josh, Mum Cassie, and 4-year-old Harvey, or little man, set out to thru-hike the Appalachian Trail in the middle of January earlier this year. When I tell you that they finished just over a week ago on August the 9th, you'll be sure to understand that they have an amazing story to tell. So I'm just going to push on and introduce you all to the Suttons. So today we've got a remarkable family on the show. For some strange reason, Josh and Cassie Sutton decided a few years ago that not only were they going to hike the Appalachian Trail in 2021, but they would be taking their then 2-year-old son, Harvey, with them. Welcome to the show, the Sutton family.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Well, we've already just actually pre-recorded Harvey on this because this is a young man ready to go to the beach. So we're going to move through this at a pretty good pace. First off, congratulations on completing your dream. We're recording about a week after you summited on August the 9th. How are you feeling?
We're trying to rest a little bit, and we're also trying to make sure that we kind of scale down all of our exercise that we've been doing. So it's kind of like we're just a little overwhelmed with all the choices we have right now.
That's interesting. Choices are always interesting because for me, the Appalachian Trail gives you so few choices. I say this on the show all the time, and it's wonderful to have so few choices, isn't it?
Oh yeah. That's the hardest thing. I couldn't believe how many choices we get to our house and, what should I do? Home projects, start working on my, my business or I don't know, maybe rest, maybe exercise. It's overwhelming how many choices you have.
Yeah, and you're going to take a while to sort of come down from it, I'm sure. And you sometimes have tough times doing that, but you can't afford to do that because you've got a 5-year-old who looks pretty active to me on some of those videos. So let's go back even before Harvey. I want listeners to know what it was that gave you both such a thirst for adventure. How did this whole idea start? Because I know you went somewhere quite radical just as your first adventure, didn't you?
Yeah, so we were reading a book about taking like miniature retirements throughout life, and it just like really attached to me. And I was like searching for some sort of adventure that we could have while we still had our health and we still had energy. And I came across a Mount Everest base camp trip. And so we just spur of the moment decided to go out there, and we climbed to the base camp of Mount Everest. And we just really fell in love with hiking and the adventure side of things. And so that kind of spurred us into figuring out what other adventures there are out there.
But that's, as I say, that's a somewhat radical first step, isn't it, really? So how high did you get to on base camp? I don't even know how high it is.
So base camp is the bottom of Mount Everest is actually at 18,000 feet.
Oh my gosh.
So it's very high, and most people get very bad altitude sickness. We weren't very prepared or smart. We knew about 3 weeks before we were going to go. I work in the real estate industry, so in Christmas time is the slowest time. So Cassie read this book, and we got inspired in November, and less than a month later, we were on a plane and doing this. But yeah, it was phenomenal. The hiking was easier than the Appalachian Trail, but the altitude gave you headaches, and you lost your appetite and things like that. So it was a completely different trek.
Now, you two aren't kids. I mean, I sound terribly objectivizing here. It's not the right thing to say, because you're not 20-year-olds or 10-year-olds. You know, you're full-grown adults. How are you able to interrupt your life to get these, as you call them, mini retirements, which I think is a great idea, by the way?
So we're both in our mid-30s, and that is it takes a lot of planning. We decided after we quickly went to Mount Everest, that was just a 3-week trip, and we did that. We made it happen, and we had the best time of our life. And then after Harvey was born, we went back to working and just living in the rat race. And we decided we have to do something. We got to do some sort of real mini retirement. Sure. So we made a goal to do something in 5 years. And then we happened to find out that it just kind of worked out that 2021 was when we were going to do this trip. So we started working so hard. I mean, having a 4 or 5 year goal makes you so much more productive. So we just started saving. We did very little vacation. I mean, I was too busy to do vacation anyway, so it was always stressful. So we just saved our money, didn't do any vacation. I started working my business and trying to come up with strategies on how to make my business not completely fall apart. We'll see if that worked or not in a few months. But right now, we also bought some rental properties where me and Cassie, we stayed up really late, and we just sacrificed a ton. But having that goal out there really made us so productive. Our rental properties just give us a little portion to help kind of cushion it. Our savings is most of what we did to make this happen. But it is very expensive not to work and live in the woods like a homeless person. It's more expensive than people might think. But although it put a big dent into our savings and really financially cost a lot, we hope that these memories and these videos that we made will be with us when we're 60 or 70, and we're really going to enjoy that in the long run. And it's going to be worth it. So
Everest Base Camp was your original idea. That's what you went up and you did that. So the AT dream was born from that. When did you even start to mention this to Harvey? Because I know you've been preparing Harvey now for about 2 or 3 years, haven't you?
Yeah, so we have just been kind of tossing it back and forth. And then about when he was 2 or 3, we started mentioning that we're going to go on this 2,000-mile hike for 200 days. And so we would go for like mile walks and refuse to carry him. So we'd walk a little bit. And if he said he was tired, we'd just sit down and play with flowers or do whatever kids do at that age, and then give him a snack, and then we walk a little bit further. And that's kind of how we started to train him and try to get his mental understanding of what we were trying to do.
But going back to your original question, after the Mount Everest Base Camp trip that we did, we started, like I said, going back into the rat race and really kind of just feeling that life wasn't full. So we were looking for an adventure to do, and that's when we saw on YouTube a kid named Buddy the Backpacker and his family. They sectioned hike, I guess, basically not sectioned. They hiked the whole Appalachian Trail, but they flip-flop back and forth, and I guess they started for a period of time, and it just kept going until they finished it. And I'm a little competitive, so I did the math real quick because we were looking for a big adventure, a mini retirement to do with our kid. And I'm like, wait a second, we'll beat him by like 6 or 7 months if we go in 2021. So that's how it actually got born, the idea. And then from there, but it was more of a joke. It wasn't real. We weren't serious about it. But at the end of the day, we just kept telling people, and we eventually told too many people, so we had to do it.
Quite right too, yeah. And funnily enough, Buddy the Backpacker comes up later in your story. I'm going to mention that in a minute when you talk about going up Katahdin, but we'll come to that later. So, as I say, I know that you trained him, and I actually watched the YouTube video of the 3 of you climbing a mountain to watch fireworks last year on the 4th of July, I think it was. Yep. I got anxiety watching that. And that wasn't even on the AT. That was just a kind of family day out as you kept going higher and higher and higher. You're both parents, and I'm sure Harvey is the most important person to you. And being parents, you've got greater insight into him than anybody. How did you see him taking to this? Because frankly, he was pulling you on, wasn't he? He was the one pushing you up that mountain.
Oh yeah, so he was always physically sound pretty good. Since he was 9-month-old, he actually started hiking, walking, and he just did really well. So we just kept pushing him a little bit to see what he could do, and then next thing you know, he did it fine. Then we pushed him a little harder, and then he was fine at that. Then we pushed him a little harder, and he was fine at that. It just kept progressing and progressing until he was able to, start hiking mountains with us. So we had to come up with some strategies on how to, keep him from wanting to be carried and things like that. And usually it was just playing games with him. Every time we took a break, we refused to play pretend. And then when we were walking, we played pretend. And that quickly taught him that the more he walks, the more games we play with him. So he just got in the habit of just keep moving. So it worked out really well.
This is hard enough to do by yourself, by the way. So that responsibility, and I say actually to you, Cassie, probably especially as a mother, mothers seem to feel things more than fathers do, I guess. That's probably an untrue thing to say, but nonetheless, people would think that's the case. Was it difficult for you to have that additional burden, or were you just loving the fact that your family was doing this all together, Cassie?
I think it was probably harder because I would feel Harvey, like I could see him have a hard time. And so I would feel that. And I would sometimes wonder if I was doing the right thing. And then all of a sudden Josh would come by and he would get down on Harvey's level and just really like pour into him. And I'm like, okay, we're doing this as a family and like we can do this. And so it just gave me strength that I was there with Josh and that he could pour into the areas that I couldn't really feel how to like help Harvey in those times.
Sure. I mean, that's, I could see, in the few videos I watched this morning, I could see you all cooperating as a family. And I got to tell you, Josh, your enthusiasm is infectious anyway. As my dad, you drive me crazy, but nonetheless, your enthusiasm to keep going was fantastic, and I love seeing that part of it. So, what medical safeguards did you take? Did you have him checked out by a pediatrician?
Yeah, and so before we even left, we took him to his annual checkup, and we had a really long talk with his doctor, and she was just very encouraging and saying, yes, take him. You're not going to hurt his legs. You're not going to hurt his joints or anything like that. And she's like, yeah, this will be a great learning physical experience for him. So she was all for it. She did caution us about Lyme disease and ticks and stuff. Yeah. And so we were very concerned about that going into it. But all the physical stuff, she was very encouraging.
He did get something on his leg, I seem to remember. What was it?
Yeah, he got a leech on his leg there in the last 100-mile wilderness. Yeah. So he was a little freaked out by that, but thankfully we had talked to some other local people there, and they told us what to do. So it was fine.
Well, that's a badge of honor for him, no doubt about it. and I saw from your YouTube channel that when you went to the top of Springer this year, on the 13th of January, by the way, which I'm going to come back to in a minute as well, amazing, his grandparents were with you at the top of Springer. What did they think about it?
They were
scared to death.
They
thought we were crazy. They were very concerned because they drove us down to Springer and dropped us off, and it was snow on the ground. So and they just left us there in the snow. They're like, I guess they're doing the right thing, but they were very, very nervous. It's funny to see how they spoke to us about the trip when they dropped us off and they were also there to pick us up at Katahdin in Maine. But the difference is when they picked us up at Katahdin is completely different attitude. They were much more encouraging and happy for our trip. Before they were pretending to be happy, but they definitely were not happy about it.
Because it was over. It was over.
Right, exactly.
Right. And you, by the way, you're I don't know whether there were two, there was an aunt or there was both your mothers or whatever it was, but then the picture panned round to one of your fathers, I guess.
Yeah,
he did not look in the least bit happy about this. he was trying to be, but he did not look in the least bit happy. And as I say, starting at Springer in mid-January is not everybody's ideal start. How did you prepare for the inevitable cold, and obviously mainly for Harvey? But you obviously have to buy the right gear. But it is blisteringly cold out there at that time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very cold. We had several days. I mean, most nights got below 20 regularly up in the mountains. And then, down to 5 degrees was, I think, our coldest we ever saw in our little thermostat deal, or I guess thermometer. But we prepared. We took Harvey out when he was 3 years old twice in below 20 degrees, and he did phenomenal. We did buy, we had 10-degree sleeping bags. Then we also got sleeping bag liners. And then, we had really good gears. We studied it. I studied it very hard. It was kind of fun to figure out like what gears you can do to, manage water and snow getting wet and still keep warm. And so we practiced several times when he was 3, and he did phenomenal. And you might talk about this later when we get to the summer part, but he did way better in the winter in the cold than he does with hot and humid weather. So
how interesting.
Yeah. So he did better than us in the cold for sure, actually.
And I saw that you actually still had snow on Max Patch, which made it look beautiful, by the way. And it only disappeared as you came into Hot Springs, I seem to recall on the videos. So you had snow for 200 or 300 miles, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I would say that at least 32. The first 45 days, our trek was different. The first 45 days, so about March 1st, we had snow, rain, or sleet every day. It was always cloudy. The sun barely came out. I think we had 3 days of full sun. It was pretty rough. But then after March 1st, we were blessed with, I guess the farmers would be a little upset because very little rain after that till we got to New Hampshire. So the weather was perfect. So it was funny. The other thru hikers that started later that caught up with us were complaining about a little drizzle or a little that. And we're just like, the weather's perfect. It's not cold or hot. The spring treated us really well.
And I know that obviously Harvey is Little Man, named by the two of you, I believe, but who named you?
So my friends, a long time ago, when we were getting ready for the trip, we knew we were starting where there wasn't going to be any hikers around. I'm like, hey guys, you guys should give me a trail name. And they were just joking around like, with a bunch of stupid names. But they knew that ever since Boy Scouts, I loved to make fires, and I was really good at making fires. So they named me Hot Hands because I was always putting my hands in the fire and stuff like that. I wish they didn't name me that because all the other hikers assume it's because I need to carry hot hands to keep my hands warm, which is not the case. And then Cassie.
And then when I first started hiking, I was always adjusting the straps on my backpack. And so it just kind of evolved from adjust to straps. And then I made some straps for we have like pads that we put in our tent. And so I made straps for that. And so that kind of solidified that I was straps.
Yeah, you know what? You need to adjust your straps every day, in my opinion. Yeah, you just need to, don't you? That's the way it goes. And because of your early start, you didn't see many other thru hikers in the beginning. But then, of course, people started to catch and pass you because obviously you're with a 5-year-old. How did they interact with Harvey, and how was he with them?
At first, he was very shy at first. And so he would barely speak to them at all. And then eventually we started having more and more hikers around us, and he would be very interactive with them. And they always assumed that we were a day hiker. It was never like, oh yeah, you're another thru hiker, let's talk. It was like, we'd start a conversation. They'd try to like walk past us, be like, oh yeah, you're just a day hiker or whatever. So they'd keep going. And then we kind of like try to engage with them. And then we'd throw out there, oh yeah, we started in Springer too. And they'd be like, what? And they were always surprised that Harvey had started in Georgia.
Yeah, everybody's very surprised. We even had one thru hiker one time try to give us his trash. He said, you guys will probably be out of the woods quicker than me. Do you mind taking this trash? I'm like, no, we walked from Springer too.
Quite right too. And when we spoke before, Josh, you were talking about how because I know what the hiking community can be like when they're sitting around a campfire at night. They have these safety meetings, as they used to call them.
They still do.
They still do. I know, yes. But you told me that they were very respectful of his space and they didn't smoke weed around him. Talk about how the hiking community sort of really bonded with him.
Yeah, the hiking community, they did great. I mean, especially as we progressed into more of, I guess, maybe the slower hikers. The fast hikers, they kind of flew by. But once we got it to a pace where people caught up to us that actually we would see them for a day or two, they really bonded with Harvey. But we didn't have any circumstances where anyone would, smoke weed or cigarettes anywhere near Harvey. Actually, we wouldn't have cared if they did it somewhat near, but they always made sure they went really far away. And even certain language that, again, we don't mind too much, but every hiker seemed very concerned that their language was very clean around Harvey. I mean, extremely clean to way more higher than our standards. So I would say almost every hiker out there had higher standards than we did around Harvey. So it was actually pretty cool to see how people were concerned about other hikers interacting with kids, and they did wonderful. I mean, the whole hiking community treated him great, and he made so many friends. He has, a trail grandma named Orange, and he saw her a million times. And the first thing we did after we got off of Katahdin, he had to call her, and he has, he was if you know, I don't know if you guys talk about different type of blazings on your podcast, but there's a thing called pink blazing, and that's when a guy, he goes faster or slower to keep up with a girl. But there's a lot of young college girls that interacted with Harvey really well. And whenever they hiked near us, Harvey would fly. He would run to keep a conversation with them. And me and Cassie loved it because it was like free babysitting. And we got to hike at our full speed. I mean, sometimes we couldn't even keep up with them because these hikers were so fast. And but they would entertain Harvey and get him up some big mountains. And we were like, woohoo, thank you. So, but he loved it. He loved especially the young ladies that interacted with him at camp and pick up his hiking speed.
And I know you started the channel. And the YouTube channel obviously took off pretty quickly because you started January 13th and I think 29th of March with his birthday. Something you told me the other day, I had to actually check the YouTube channel this morning to see if I'd take my notes correctly. How many presents did he get on his 5th birthday? More than any other child on earth, I should think.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy. Josh had just said it out of a whim, like, hey, here's our P.O. box. You can send him a letter or something, or a small gift or something. And we were just wondering what would happen. And so we come back and Josh's dad is checking our P.O. box. And he keeps like texting us like, I have to go every day now because you're getting letters and packages. It's just too much. And so we get back and there's this huge pile, like probably 300 letters and gifts and stuff. And
it took us, we had some of the grandparents help us open them. It took us over 15 man hours just to open the packages. And that's not even read. Cassie spent the whole next day reading all the cards just so he can, tell people that we read them all. Harvey was bored in about 15 minutes, and I've never heard of a 5-year-old getting bored of opening presents.
So Harvey now has his own staff who opens his letters for him, which is quite impressive.
Right, exactly. But yeah, they were so generous. I mean, people made custom-made T-shirts for him and custom-made, just so many things. If you guys are listening from Cary, North Carolina, the whole REI staff actually gave him a cooler, like a bag cooler, and signed it from all the staff. So it was pretty neat, just all the generosity out there.
Have you had the chance to think why this happened? There are tons of YouTube channels out there, but why do you think this resonated so much? Was it because they were normally from parents, or they were just resonating with what you were doing with your kid?
Yeah, so we were looking because it was interesting. Early on, we had a mix of all our people just watching our YouTube, but once we looked at the analytics, it seemed to be people mostly from the ages of 45 to 65. And I think it's because they probably had kids themselves, I'm assuming, and this is just my assumption, and it brought them probably memories of things that they did with their kids. And that's my assumption, is it brought back happy memories. And as well, they probably, are interested in the trail, obviously. Maybe they want to hike it when they're retired or something. And so I'm assuming, but it probably just brought back a lot of happy memories.
Nice. And I, as you can tell, I've been watching videos this morning of you. I always cyber stalk my guests because I try to work out how to tell the story. And there was one of the funniest things I saw this morning was the bit of Cassie's face when you took it upon yourself to buy Harvey new shoes. And because Cassie looked very disapproving throughout the whole video about this. But then it got me to thinking how you had to monitor what was going on with Harvey, even though, because he may not have been able to articulate he needed new shoes. Was that a constant concern, or was that something you feel your child well enough to know when things need changing? Because no one has the same gear when they finish a hike to when they start, do they? So how did you work through that?
Yeah, it was kind of hard because he would say like, oh, my feet are tired, but does that mean that his shoes aren't fitting right? Or are they tired, or are they sore? And so because his vocabulary is very limited, you just kind of had to ask a lot of questions and lean in. And one of the things I was always worried about is if he was cold, because he wouldn't really tell you if he was cold or if he was hot, or if he had too many layers or too little layers. And so we were just constantly like trying new things and just hoping through some sort of vocabulary he could tell us. But it was just a big guessing game and just trial and error until we found what worked. And usually you could tell by how fast he was moving. So if he would go really slow, then you knew something was wrong and you had to fix something, whether it was he needed food or if he needed a jacket off or something like that. It was always usually related to how fast or slow he was going, you could tell.
Right. So how do those new shoes end up? Did you keep them or not? Because you sat down and had a conversation. It was one of those conversations where you were definitely on the back foot, Josh, let me tell you.
Yeah. So first of all, Cassie knew the shoes were coming. We did have a disagreement about if he needed a larger size or not, but she knew they were coming. So that was a little bit just to try to make the YouTube channel interesting. That was our one shot of kind of make believe, or I guess TV making.
She's a good actor there because she looked really pissed.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a little fun that day, but I think that was the only time we actually tried to create drama for YouTube just to see if we.
But we still disagree.
Yeah, we definitely disagreed on that. But it turned out he actually needed the shoes. And he grew into them fine. And actually, by the time we got to Katahdin, his size were those shoes that were too big for him at that day were actually too small for him. We had to go up another size even higher than that. I think two sizes higher by the time we were actually finished with the Katahdin.
I'm not surprised. Funnily enough, I could see his physical growth because I then had to start moving forward to near the end. So I looked at the 100-mile wilderness video. His physical growth. You can see it through the channel. And I say that the last video was on the 100-mile wilderness. He looked taller and way more able to keep on the path. Did you see that happening while it was going along?
Not really. It was more of it kind of jumped on us as well. Like once we got to like New Hampshire and Maine, all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, he looks like a 5-year-old, longer, looks like a 4-year-old. And it kind of hit me all of a sudden. It wasn't a gradual thing for me, but all of a sudden I could tell.
And I know that you had your own bit of controversy on the trail. Of course, every hiker has a bit of controversy at some stage in their hike, but yours was quite interesting one. And the way you handled it, I thought was perfect. It was about getting permission to actually climb Katahdin, and you actually invoked the name of Buddy Backpacker in your letter to Baxter State Park, didn't you? Tell us how that all went down. How all that went down.
So we heard that Buddy the Backpacker got special permission, and other hikers did not. So there's another family and the Crawfords, and we saw their video, and they did not get permission. Their kid was carried and not walking it themselves, and Buddy was walking themselves. So we wanted to see if we can get permission. We're not the type of people to break rules, and we didn't want to do that. So once we realized that was a big issue. In Harper's Ferry, we wrote a letter to the director at Baxter Park, and then we didn't hear a reply for a long time. And we actually sent letters as well, emails to the senators in Maine and also the governor. Maybe they could push. And after we did that, we did get a reply suddenly. So I don't know if that helped or not, but we got a reply, and he decided to give us permission to present our case to the park authorities, which I keep calling them board of directors, but park authorities. And they, we got to do an 1.5-hour Zoom call, and they laid out the reason why the rule was made, or the best they could tell, the history of if there ever been exceptions. And Buddy the Backpacker in 2013, the director just gave an exception, even though they may or may not have had the authority to. And that was a gray area. They had their lawyers on board to see if they could give an exceptions, and they worked through it. We did know that some of the rangers weren't thrilled about changing the rules, which now that climbing the mountain, I could see why. The mountain is definitely difficult for kids.
Yes.
But the park authorities were very supportive. And one of them was a thru hiker, but they were very supportive of what we have done. And all the arguments to keep us off the mountain, one of the directors was the state attorney general, and he kept asking good questions like, how many helicopter rescues are for kids? And most all the helicopter rescues were for people 70 plus, not for kids. So 70-year-olds need helicopters, and they're allowed to go. So maybe kids should be allowed to go. And they were worried about kids running off. And we've gone at that point 1,700 miles without our kid running off. So all those reasons that we work through, they became confident that they should be able to allow the director to give us special permission, which they did. So we were very thankful for that. And it's because, it's really just because Harvey actually did the miles himself. He didn't run off. He didn't need rescuing. And, we all three of us proved that we could, keep him safe through the Smokies and through the Whites and whatnot.
There was a bit of dramatic license there because Cassie was sitting there wringing her hands while you were watching this this Zoom video, wasn't she? Must have been a nerve-wracking moment, but it must have been a great relief when you actually got it as well, so you knew you could carry on with it. So I know that you happened to meet Nimble Nomad in Millinocket just before you summited. Did he have any advice for your young backpacker, or was he just a nice guy that you met who was also hiking at the same time?
So it was funny, and this is not to sound downgrading to him at all, but him and Harvey were very similar. Actually, they both just kind of did what they were told. Nimble Nomad had two sponsors with him that were helping him out, and they were telling him, "Hey, go over there and take a picture with this kid." We were telling Harvey, "Go over there and take a picture with this man," and they both just kind of smiled and took pictures with lots of people. There was a bunch of people there, and they all wanted pictures of them with them. So they basically just didn't say much. They both just smiled and let people take pictures of them. So it was kind of cute to see how similar they were on different spectrums of life. But in one way, they had people supporting them and helping them, and they just were very happy just to be able to take pictures with people and whatnot.
That's very cool. So it takes us back to last Monday because we're recording on August 16th, I think it is, and it was the 9th when you actually summited. What did it feel like for the two of you to know that it was over? Did you feel relief that you'd carried your son safely through this, or he'd been through this safely? Or were you sad it was over? How did you feel about it?
I think I felt so much excitement on the top, but then the night after, it was just like, I can't believe this is over. Like, now what? Like, there was almost something missing. Like, I felt like the total excitement wasn't complete. I felt like there was something more was needed, and there was nothing more. And so you're kind of almost lost a little bit in your mind. Like, there's something else Cassie, I need, but I can't get it.
Everybody is. Everybody seems to be. There's something that suddenly you've had in your life for that period of time, and suddenly it's not there anymore. Like, what am I going to do with that space in my life? And as you said earlier on, you've now got many more options you actually need in life. You've got more options, and it's sometimes kind of almost distressing to have so many options. I found that myself, and I'm sure other people have found that as well. But Harvey, you said, unless I wrote this wrong as well, this made me laugh. I said, how did Harvey react? And you said, Josh, that he would have preferred to have a donut.
Yeah, it's funny. He gets, if we have had so many blessings along the trail, and trail magic was one of those. And sometimes people do trail magic first at the edge of the road, and he just leaps with joy and is so excited to go get trail magic. Or if we tell him tomorrow, we heard there's somebody coming to do trail magic, we'll be able to meet them. He gets so excited, just can't sleep because he's so excited for that trail magic. But then, but when we actually get to the top of Katahdin, or the day before, it's just for him, it's confusing. Why are we excited? Why are we happy? Like, he's more, you'll see when our YouTube video hasn't come out yet, but you'll see his face is just very normal, I guess. He doesn't know, he's more confused why people are excited and mom's crying. Because it just doesn't make sense to him, that we completed or started anything. He really doesn't remember. Even Christmas presents we had that just last Christmas we gave to him, when we got home, he didn't remember that he had them. Like, he doesn't remember before the trip that much.
That's what you said. I thought that was interesting. So you said that Harvey remembers virtually nothing about his pre-hike life. And it's obvious when you think about it, 20% of his life has been on the trail, or whatever the number is. It's quite a big percentage. Has he adapted back to so-called real life well in this week that you've been back, or is he still out there, do you think, in some ways?
I think he's still learning what the normal routine and schedule is, because he's used to waking up at 5:30 and start walking for 10 hours a day and being outdoors. And so being indoors and having like regular scheduled food time and just figuring out how to interact with people. I know we would be walking down a trail. We went just with at our nearby park, and people would pass us and he'd be like, "Happy trails," and they're like turn around and like look at him like and so just like learning how to interact like back in civilization, he's going to take some time, I think.
Yeah, his vocabulary is hilarious. We're driving over a big bridge with a lot of water. I don't know if it's a lake or a river or whatnot. And he looked and pointed and he said, "Look at that huge water source." And then we saw a porta potty and he's like, "Hey, look at that privy. That's funny." So like his vocabulary is definitely going to be different when he goes into kindergarten.
I'm sure it will. But what about the two of you? Your hike is likely always going to be not so much overshadowed by Harvey's achievement, but I know very well that this is a massive accomplishment for both of you. And Josh told me the other day that he never doubted that he could do it. But Cassie, how did you feel before you started?
I didn't think I could do it.
Oh, right. Really? Why not?
To be honest, I really didn't think I could. I hate being cold and wet.
Oh,
and
good.
The Appalachian
Good,
Trail,
helpful.
you're cold and wet a lot. And so I told myself, just get to Virginia. And I got to Virginia and I was like, oh, I could do this. And so it wasn't until Virginia that I really grew a confidence in myself that maybe I can get to Maine. So I just kept telling myself, get to Virginia.
And finishing, so that must have been brought about kind of a different mindset for you then. So once you'd finished, did you feel it? I mean, the word I've always used in the past about how I felt accomplished having done that. In the same way I feel like I failed to do the John Muir Trail recently because I couldn't do it. I couldn't last, more than 3 days. Do you feel accomplished now you've done this?
I think I feel powerful would be the word that I would describe. I feel strong. I didn't feel that in myself before. I guess that's why I didn't think I could do it. But now I feel like I'm strong and powerful.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't say accomplished because I don't feel like, because I still don't understand that it's over, I guess, in my mind.
And about you, Josh, how do you feel? How are you feeling, Josh?
I almost feel a little lost because, like I said, I was very confident that I could do it, and I knew that it was going to be a great experience, and it was so good. But now that we're home, like before, it was so neat to watch Harvey every day grow, and the friends he made on the trail, and everyone that passed us. I felt like the whole community had such a camaraderie, and now that we're back in the world, it's we're at the beach right now doing a little debrief for a couple of days so Harvey can run around a little bit before he goes to kindergarten, and just so many people around, and they all have their own worlds, their own direction. Even our family picking us up from Katahdin at the top of, once we finished in Baxter Park. It was so sad because a lot of the hikers were going back to the hiker hostel, and we went to a motel and did dinner with our family, and none of our family really knew what we went through, and there was just not that camaraderie you have with other hikers. And so I thought I would feel more accomplished, but I actually feel more of a loss. It's almost like I lost some camaraderie that I enjoyed so much that just isn't there anymore, and I don't know how to find it in this life.
Wow, how amazing. It's funny, actually. I do tell people, I've said it on the show before, tell all your stories for the first 3 weeks, because after that, no one's going to give a crap about what you did because they won't get it, and they just won't get it. So you're going to meet through hikers again, and you'll want to speak to them because they understand what you've been through, and I understand what you've been through. It's amazing. So what's the next mini retirement going to look like? What are you going to do next?
Well, right now we got to make money because it's very expensive not to work. So we got to.
Apart from that, yeah,
we got to go back and do that. We don't have anything planned, set in stone. There's a lot of ideas I have. One, we could go hiking again. Harvey seems to enjoy it and he keeps talking about it, so we could do another hike. Something's secretly been inside of me, although I know nothing about this and haven't done this yet. But I love the water and Cassie loves the camper life. So I'm like, hey, well, why don't we just, maybe in 10 years, save up enough money and take a sailboat and island hop or something like that would be awesome, which is a lot more expensive, but that would be fun because I love tinkering on things. So it'd be fun to have a little moving home that you could tinker with. It's kind of like the camper life, but a little bit different. Yeah,
you clearly haven't done your math or never met a 15-year-old. Harvey will be 15 then. You ain't gonna want to do that.
Yeah, people also said that about the AT, so I don't know. We'll see.
So Last question. I'm sure that many people have watched your videos and they may have taken away the impression, mistakenly in my view, that it's pretty straightforward. You do make it look quite easy, actually. You get the right gear, you walk the miles, but videos don't tell the whole story. Were there times when you thought to yourselves, what have we done? And what advice would you give anybody who would like to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, there were definitely times when I thought, oh my goodness, what have I gotten myself into? And I think I just remember one spot when we were in the Smoky Mountains and we were walking away and our shoes were frozen. And so we put on frozen shoes and we're walking. I've got tears running down my cheeks. And I'm like trying to hide it from Harvey. And I'm like, come on, come on. And he's like, Mom, my toes are cold. And I'm like, we just have to walk that first half mile and then you're warm and it's fine. But you have to get to that half mile mark before you get warm. And so tears are running down my cheeks. I'm like, what have I done? I can't believe I'm out here. And then Josh comes up and he has this positive attitude and just completely changes Harvey's attitude around. And I like wipe my tears away. I'm like, okay, this is a choice. And then I make the choice to have a positive attitude. And that was the point when I realized like, okay, I have chosen to do something that's very hard, but I can do it. And so I think that's probably the biggest advice that I would give to somebody is when you're having those hard times, don't give up, but choose to make a better attitude and choose to persevere because you can do it if you have the right attitude. So I think attitude is.
Yeah. And then also like some stuff we don't show in the video is when we're at a shelter with other hikers and Harvey wakes up in the middle of the night screaming because they had a nightmare. You know, that happens with kids. And it's really, it's embarrassing because there's other hikers around or somebody comes to do trail magic for you and Harvey's having a bad day and, you know, they've seen this positive kid on YouTube that's so positive and happy and then they show up and he's just like crying and he doesn't want this type of food with that type of food or whatever it is, and he's just having a bad day and a bad attitude. That happened. I mean, he is a normal 5-year-old, and luckily all the people we met that seen his true colors, I guess, is not his YouTube colors, were so thankful. They're like, oh, it's so great to see that he's actually a real kid. So he's very much a real kid that has good days and bad days and yells at his parents and things like that as well. But we don't always pull out the camera when he's upset.
Quite right too. Well, look, I am so appreciative you took the time to record. And Harvey, I don't know if you can hear me, you probably can't, but I want you to wave at me in a minute. He has been sitting there so perfectly quietly. It's remarkable to me that a 5-year-old learned to do this as well. So I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm going to put in a few of the comments I had with Harvey earlier on, and we're trying to make this sound like he's been actually recording with me at the same time, but he's been sitting on the bed he's ready to go to the beach now, isn't he?
Yes, yep. Definitely.
Yes. Okay, well, guys, thanks so much. I do appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we'll speak again soon sometime.
All right. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
What a story, eh? And how smart of them to consider what they needed to do about getting Harvey up Katahdin at the end. Sometimes in life, you just need to make an exception to the rules. It may not have worked out, but it did. And having actually walked those 2,200 miles, I think that the little guy deserved his shot, don't you? And talking of little man, of course, I'm not going to leave him out. What follows is when a terrified kid looks into a screen to see a doddering old fool asking him basic questions. But I tried. Let's hear from little man for a couple of minutes. Okay. Firstly, how are you? You good?
Yeah.
Now, I know you've just done an amazing thing. What was the most fun for you on your hike?
The rock scrambles.
Really? Weren't you scared?
No.
Why not? Have you done this before?
No.
So it's quite an exciting thing, isn't it? So when you were on the hike, what didn't you like about it?
The rain.
The rain. But I know you started early in the year. There was snow on the ground, wasn't there? Did you like the snow?
Yeah.
Did you? Did you build a snowman?
Yes.
I saw it on one of your videos. So what are you going to tell are you going back to school soon? Or are you going to school soon?
Yes.
And what are you going to tell your friends when they ask you what you did this year?
Hike.
But what are you going to say? How far did you go?
200 miles.
It's a lot more than 200 miles, isn't it?
2,000.
2,000. That's a lot more miles, isn't it? So you're going to hike again?
Yes.
Are you? Where are you going to hike next?
Where's that? I'm going to do the 80 again.
Are you? When?
Yeah.
When are you going to do that again?
Like 100 days or so.
All right. That'd be nice. It'd be a nice thing to do, won't it?
Yeah.
So are you proud of yourself for doing this hike? Do you think it's a really good thing?
Yeah.
And if there's anybody of 5 years of age listening to this, what do you want to tell them? Do you want to encourage them to do it or say, no, it's too difficult?
It's too difficult.
Oh, dear, that's so cool. Well, thank you, Harvey, for talking to me. I want to talk to your mummy and daddy now, okay? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. What a cutie, eh? I know he doesn't realise it yet, but he's going to be able to look back in years to come and marvel at the adventure his folks have taken him on. I feel sure that he's going to be forever grateful for not only the experience, but also the wonderful record his folks kept of that experience via their YouTube channel. It's thank you time again this month, and as you know, I'm a few weeks behind. So without further ado, here goes. We've had recurring donations from Todd Withrow, Betty McInerney, Jessica Diaz, Michelle Brown, Melanie Swisher, Lars Hubbard, Hugh Ickrath, Anne Hinton, Anne Dobson, Mike DiCello, Terry Hackler, Jenny Grunke, Brian Hilton Jr., Erskine Bass, Lisa Rana, our friends at Obsessed Sportswear Limited, and Suzanne Johnson. And we've had one-off donations from John Krautler, Joe Young, Elizabeth Brewer, Connie Nestor, Shannon Ford, Jens Lipperheider, Charles Tilson, the lovely Dr. Lynn, an anonymous donation, Jeffrey Jones, and Amanda Aguilard. The reason I was hesitating there, by the way, because I put some of their notes in there. One guy decided, Charles Tilson, decided to monetize the value by paying or donating a certain amount per mile of my 2019 hike. What a wonderful idea. And Shannon Ford says, thanks for all you do. Arthur Gross wrote Eric Gross. So I presume Arthur is Eric. So whoever it is, thank you so much. Connie Nestor said, thanks for the great content, especially enjoy Jester. Good luck on the JMT. Can't wait to hear about the trip. Well, sorry about that, Connie. Elizabeth Brewer said, thanks, Steve, for the wonderful interviews over the years. You do bring value to the hiking community through your amazing podcast interviews. Nice. And hopefully that's everyone. By the way, a few people have written to me asking if they could donate not via PayPal. So for those of you who would like to send me a check or even a postcard when they go on vacation, I've been to the post office this afternoon and invested in my very first P.O. Box. The address is Mighty Blue Publishing, P.O. Box 6161. To make it easy for the old guy. Sun City Centre, Florida 33571. Thanks to all of you who stepped up, and to those of you who are going to step up in the future. It really helps me keep these shows going. Now let's hear a catch up with Katie. If you recall, the last time we spoke, she was grateful to have been on the Pennsylvania and New Jersey border. Why wouldn't she? Let's hear what's been happening since then. Here's Katie. Well, for the first time in, 4 or 5 weeks, I think it is, we're back on with Katie. Hey, Katie, how are you?
Hey, how are you, Steve?
Well, I'm good.
Doing pretty good, kind of tired.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. And in fact, the last time we spoke, you were, it was before I went on my abortive trip on the John Muir Trail, you were at home with a black eye and you finished Pennsylvania. So let's kind of catch up from there, because I know that you've had quite a few hiking partners, some of whom listen to this show. So fill us in on what you've been doing the last few weeks.
Oh, my goodness. Let's see. Finished up in Pennsylvania. I have to look back at my notes. It's been a while.
Well, it's okay. I know New York is next. No, New Jersey next. Sorry.
Right.
New Jersey's next, right?
Right. loved New Jersey. Lots of, fun areas for hiking. And
but the rocks didn't stop, did they?
oh no. No, I think I'm figuring out that's the nature of the mountains.
It seems to be that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So through New Jersey, I'm trying to think. I think when I spoke to you, I had a big hornet. I got a hornet sting at one point and was showing some pretty serious reactions. I don't know if I told you about that.
I don't recall. Well, I think I saw it on Facebook. I don't think you and I spoke about it.
That was going into Unionville, New York.
Right.
And
what actually happened? Sorry.
I was having trouble swallowing, which I guess is the first step toward. I had hives all over my body.
Oh my gosh!
And I know, and so I stayed in a hotel. A wonderful stranger, someone in the. I was at a crossroad, and someone in the neighborhood was walking his dog, and took me to. I just checked into a room that was near, I knew it would be near like an emergency center if I needed it.
Sure.
But just took a bunch of antihistamines anyway. But that kind of wore me down just a little bit. And luckily, one of your listeners, Barb, was hiking with me the next day,
yes.
And she's a nurse, so she was able to talk to me and help me out. And we ended up doing 14 and a half miles the next day.
She's quite a trooper, isn't she?
Oh my gosh. Yes, man. And that was hiking. We ended up hiking over, they call it Stairway to Heaven. And that really was the first time I was on Benadryl, which made it especially difficult to hike. You're feeling that drag.
Sure.
So anyway, but that day was one of the first days that I felt like, I'm tired. I'm tired. I don't know.
I'm shocked.
I don't know if I can do this.
I'm shocked at that because I was going to say to you, and I'm saying this in all due respect, that you look magnificent in your photos. Maybe you look so happy, you look so controlled, you look so calm, and you look like you're really kicking ass out there. So you've shocked me, and I didn't know that. You and I haven't had a conversation about this. So what's coming across in the pictures isn't what you said just now. So tell me how what got through that.
So I think when you hit these milestones and you take a photograph, you are excited, you are happy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not dealing with some tough moments.
Yeah. Well, Katie, you know damn well, already, you've done over 1,000 miles now. So you know that there are tough moments throughout this trip, just all the time. None of it's easy, is it?
Right. That's true. And, so there are moments when you say, well, the honeymoon is most certainly over.
Oh, yeah, that happened sometime in Georgia.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, it took me almost 1,000 miles to say that. But
how'd you recover then? How'd you recover? What happened?
You just get up and you walk the next day.
Is the only answer, isn't it? It's the only answer. You're right.
It is. That's right. You say, well, okay, that was a rough day, and you get up and you just keep going. That's the only answer I know. And so went into from New Jersey into New York. That was really exciting. That was fun. It's up on a big, rocky top. There you see the border of. You see the border of New Jersey, New York, and that's where I met these two women, the Wandering Dames, and we've been hiking together since. Our little journey will come to an end at the end of this week.
Right.
So, but they were fun, and I think we had a good time hiking together, and we're supportive of each other. But after New York, and I have to say, I really loved hiking in New York because it was not super scary, like
there's some quite smooth
rock
don't you
edges.
think there are some quite smooth upturned rocks though? And if you walk on some of that in the rain, that's quite tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, but I really felt like it was fun, and there were so many overlooks, things you could see.
Yes.
But you could see you had views. Connecticut, and we also had a fun time. I had a fun time, especially with
Dr. Lynn. You met
Dr.
Lynn.
Lynn. Yes. Oh my gosh, what a neat woman.
She's awesome.
And she hiked with us and gave us trail magic, and she was wonderful. And we hiked with her in New York, and she sent us on our way once we got to Connecticut. And then in Connecticut, it was quite lovely. The beginning of the trail in Connecticut, I felt was lovely. By the time we were getting toward the end of Connecticut, there looked like the forest was really suffering from I'm not sure what, but it didn't look so healthy.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Has it been very hot? Has it been very hot up there?
Oh yeah. We in northern Connecticut and going into, I guess, Massachusetts, we were hitting some pretty 100-degree heat indexes.
Wow. Wow, that's warm. That's warm in there. Yeah.
But we were struggling with places to camp too, because you could only camp at the shelter areas. There were no, you weren't allowed to stealth camp. And I think it's because the forests are so impacted.
Yes.
And
but there's a clue in the title, don't you? Stealth means you stealth camp.
Right.
Yeah. But I know you're not meant to.
And we did.
Yeah.
I guess about a week ago, we ended up, not even a week ago, in Massachusetts. I'm not sure. It was Massachusetts.
Yeah.
A big storm came rolling over one of those ridges, and we had 3 minutes to get the tent set up. So
it's fast. It comes at you fast, doesn't it? The weather.
Yeah. So got that, did that. But we just now have hit a spot where the humidity is low, still pretty buggy, we're in Vermont now.
Right.
Still dealing with bugs, but boy, it was so bad. You were literally running. At one point, you found yourself running through these areas just to try to keep the bugs off of you.
They can be a touch irritating.
I mean,
they can be a little bit irritating, can't
laughing. Oh man, I'm laughing, but it was not funny then. And that was the humidity, the bugs, all of that wears you down.
Sure.
Then it's like another day. You just get up and go another day, and some serendipity happens that the weather changes. Some sweet person, I have an old friend who lives up here in Massachusetts, came and gave us trail magic and hiked with us all day.
Nice.
So it was just, it raises your spirits, and you just.
So how is the?
If you just keep going, I'm sorry.
So how is the mindset now then? How is the mindset now? Are you positive? Because I know you've got plans coming up, haven't you?
Yes. Would you like me to share that, or?
Yes, I think so. You share those plans. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a little concerned about my pace and speed and hitting Katahdin before the serious weather starts to roll in.
Sure.
So. We hit Vermont yesterday, and so I'll have another 4 or 5 days to hike, north for Vermont, and then I'm planning to jump up to Katahdin. So I will head up to Katahdin, and then.
What date are you heading up to Katahdin? What date are you heading up to Katahdin?
I'm flying up on the 22nd, but I'm scheduled to summit on the 24th.
Oh.
You actually, yeah.
I summited in 2019 on the 22nd of August. So I don't know what the weather's like. I don't know what the weather's like up there now, but I know that we loved going through Maine in August. So hopefully you're going to have a lovely time. I just think it's the most beautiful state. You know, everybody talks about New Hampshire, and that is magnificent. But, you know, Katahdin itself, as you know, I'm crazy about it. But going through Maine itself, Katie, is just awesome. And to do it in August, I think you've got a really good plan there. So what is the plan right now? Where are you scheduling? Are you thinking about what times? You've got your flight already. You summit Katahdin on the 24th. What happens then?
Yeah, my daughter Molly did. So I have 3 daughters, and my daughters are doing all these logistics for me. So one daughter's keeping my dog. One daughter has booked my flight and arranged with the AT Lodge and got all that set up. And one daughter's sending all my winter gear up there.
I'm sure you've realised. I'm sure you must have realised, and I'm sure you knew this before anyway. But to have the support of people who love you is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And how people, especially these youngsters who maybe have got issues at home and whatever it is, how tough it must be for them to be doing this. But you've got all the support. You've got friends who come and see you. You've got some of my friends who come and see you. You've got your family who see you. I mean, it's just awesome for you to do this, isn't it? And you feel this weight of love on you, which is wonderful.
Yes. Well, I can tell you that it would not be possible for me to do it without that. So that just, you know, I just am in constant gratitude for the support that I've had. So I don't know how anyone would do it without it, but I certainly could not.
Yeah, so you go to Katahdin. So you do the approach trail for the southbounders, which is climbing Katahdin, which makes me crazy.
Yeah, right.
And then you start southbound from the top of Katahdin.
I'm going to start south.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. I have never been to Maine. In fact, you know, I had never hiked north of Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
So this is all of this is new for me, and I'm so looking forward to Maine and hearing the loons and just seeing what the terrain is, and I'm really looking forward to it. And you know, I spoke to a man. His trail name is Aerosmith, and he does lashing, long distance section hiking, and he has climbed Katahdin, I think, a couple of times, and he was so kind to me. And he's an older man, and he said, "You can so do Katahdin," because I was expressing my concerns, and he said, "You know, there's nothing there that you haven't done already. It's just longer. You have it all day." You know? So I like the way he put it. He said, "It's just an it's what you've done, but more of it."
Yeah. You know, the miles you've done already. And by the way, have you worked out how many miles you've done so far?
Yeah, I'm right now at 1,038.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're getting there. There's no question about it. You're getting there. So are you still expecting to finish this year?
I am.
You should do, shouldn't you?
I think I should. Yeah. My plan is to go to Katahdin. I'll hike south, and then I'll still have all of Maine and New Hampshire, and then about half of Vermont to do.
Right.
So,
okay. So
then I'll.
Where do you intend stopping in Vermont then, Katie?
Then I'll after once I get back to where I've been stopped in Vermont, then I will head back to Irwin, Tennessee, and do the last part of that section and hike home to Central Virginia. To
Rockfish Gap. Yeah, amazing. So have you already planned where you're going to finish Vermont? Is that already mapped out?
Yeah, I think Manchester Center.
Nice.
That gives me time to get. I'm flying out of Albany, so
I tell you what, it's a really good flip flop. I think it's a great flip flop the way in which you've done it, and you're gonna love it. So, have you got a mind of when you think you'll finish by? Soon after Thanksgiving or just before?
Well, yeah, I think probably I'm hoping by the end of October, early November.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, look,
yeah.
I'm so pleased you're going well. As I said to you, I've been watching your Facebook posts, and you look wonderful. You look better than I've seen you looking the whole hike. You've looked very tired some of the times, but all these pictures now, you're looking strong. You're looking surrounded by people who think a lot of you, and it's just a wonderful thing for me to see that you seem to be thriving out there.
Yeah, I do feel strong, Steve. Yesterday was a little bit of a challenge coming down into, I'm not even sure where, at Bennington, at the end of a 14-mile day coming down those rocks. But, it's what it is.
It is what it is. You can, and the great thing about it, I was talking to somebody who's actually going to be on as a main guest in this show, is the couple who walked with their young son, Harvey, little man. He finished at the age of 5 years of age. How about that? And,
wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And the way in which they talked about it, and I certainly recognise it as well, is there are so many options now. They're at home. And when they're on the trail, there were so few options, which they loved, which I love as well.
Right.
And so your thing is, all I've got to do is keep walking, and I'm good to go. There's nothing else to think about, is there? Nothing else to think about.
Right. You just walk. Just walk, and you don't, you not too hard on yourself, and just walk and try to find something to love about each day.
Yeah. Very, very true. Very true. And as I say to you, I think you look like you are. So, look, we'll catch up again to go back to the normal schedule now. We'll catch up again next week. And with a bit of luck, next week then you will be climbing Katahdin on the day the episode comes out. I think when we speak, it'll be either before or after you go up Katahdin. So you let me know when's a good time for you, and we'll speak about it then, okay?
I have a feeling it'll probably take a full day, I'm
sure.
Will.
You know what? And do you know what? It took me longer to come down than it did to go up. But enjoy that process. Yeah. Enjoy the whole thing. Yeah. And just keep in your mind the thought of what I've always said, how exciting it is to approach that sign at whatever stage your hike is in. It's a wonderful thing to be approaching that sign and get your pictures and all that sort of stuff. So next week or the week after, I want a picture of you on Katahdin, okay?
Okay, doke. All right, Steve.
All right,
Take
Katie.
care.
Take it easy. Bye.
All right. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
As I said, when I spoke to her, she looks wonderful right now. And she's keeping her spirits up and continues to push forward. I really hope I get a chance to interview her next week from Katahdin. That would be cool, wouldn't it? Now, I've had an idea. While I love that many of you step up and support our shows, I've been thinking of ways in which I can enhance what we offer on the Hiking Radio Network and finance more shows and not have to worry about finance anymore. Currently, we've got 6 shows, 3 of which are live, regular shows. The others are poor old JR's try at the AT last year, Dixie's hike on the CDT, and Bruce's AT hike back in 2018, which, by the way, still gets loads of downloads every day. It's amazing. So I've discovered a way in which I can do my usual following of a hiker through the season thing, while at the same time getting more hiking shows on the network. Let me explain, because that makes no sense at all. So let me explain. I know that some of you are going to be YouTubing your hikes over the next few years, but really, I think there's a dearth of good hiking shows that can cover all aspects of hiking while making it fairly easy to put together. Over the next couple of months, I'm going to be looking for 5 people who want to start a new podcast, whether it's a general hiking show or one that specifically follows that person on a thru hike. Do you recall that I podcasted my 2019 thru hike? I used a software on my phone and got Orion to post the shows for me. It worked like a dream. So this is the deal. Each of these 5 people will start their own podcast using the same tools that I used. I'll help them understand the software, find them the artwork for their show, the music, and I'll make them part of the Hiking Radio Network with their very own website within that framework. They can keep whatever sponsorship money they can get. I'll edit their shows, include their music and transitions, post them on all the podcast platforms, as well as add the Hiking Radio Network intro. The good bit about that, of course, is that they will get a ready-made audience to at least listen to what they have to say. Making the content good is what keeps people coming back, of course. You'll be paying to be part of the network, to have your own website, and for me to work out all the logistics of putting a show together and editing it for you. All you need to do is record and share the files with me. I will do the rest. So what do you think? Good idea? Bad idea? Let me know, and if you want to be considered, then email me at steve@hikingradionetwork.com with a rough outline of the show that you'd intend to do. Once I find out a few more details, I'll be able to share prices and so on with you. So please don't feel bad about just writing to me, and if you can't afford it, you can't afford it, that's fine. But don't be put off by price, because there's a lot of sponsors out there who do actually want to sponsor people. Now, I know it's been a long show, so I apologise for going on a bit, but I really wanted to share that with you. Wouldn't it be great if we had, say, a PCT show, a Camino show, I don't know, a North Country Trail show? You're only limited by your own imagination. Now, we're going to start a brand new book. Well, it's about 12 years old. It's called Just Passin Thru by Winton Porter, and it was suggested to me by my buddy, Bruce RTK Matson. Thanks, Bruce. I hope that you all enjoy it. I'll see you next week. Just Passin Thru, a vintage store, the Appalachian Trail, and a cast of unforgettable characters by Winton Porter. Preface. In 2001, when my family and I came to live at Mountain Crossings, the little outfitter shop that sits astride the Appalachian Trail where it crosses Gainesville Highway outside Blairsville, Georgia, I brought with me a stack of cheap, coffee-stained composition books. These were the tokens not so much of a rider's ambition as of a hiker's habit. People who love the private experience of nature have to take special measures to preserve their memories of it. The swoop of a hawk, the slow lifting of mists from a valley at dawn, the release of the thickly sweet smell of pines after a storm. These things don't make the news. Unlike the fortunes of your baseball team or the sexual misadventures of your congressman, these aren't the kinds of experiences that Google and Wikipedia will remember for you. If you want a record of your journey in a wild place, you have to make it yourself. By the time we made this move, I already had a long career in outdoor retail in Atlanta and Chicago and Salt Lake City, and I'd been hiking the North Georgia mountains since I was a boy growing up here in the South. Indeed, like the visitors you will meet in this book, I myself had been a visitor to the old Stone and Chestnut store with the covered breezeway for many years before I became its proprietor. So I brought with me to the mountains a certain confidence that I knew what I was getting into. No one was ever so fortunate to be so wrong. It has been 8 years, and I've never once known what is coming next. Before long, my friends included one old man who liked to sleep on my roof and another who, well into his 80s, said he was still hiking just to keep from getting bored. An ex-Navy SEAL who lived in my basement and cooked breakfast for my guests was sometimes mistaken for a homeless person. My daughters, both of whom could melt their father's helpless heart at will by the time they learned to walk, were growing up gorgeous and smart in their home away from urban life. Margie, my wife and my best friend, was becoming more beautiful to me by the day in the sanctuary of our new surroundings. So preserving the stories of these people and these times in their lives and my life began to fill up my composition books, one after another, until I looked up one day and saw a stack that was a foot high. Together they would make a substantial thud if they fell off the desk. Thought, reflection, and memory have a very real weight, and what was I to do with this palpable substance? I began to find the answer, and with it the resolve to write this book, about a year ago, on a slow morning in early summer. I was watching the eyes of customers who milled around the store, and a few of them were buying, but everyone was looking. I noticed that what their eyes kept finding, what captured their imaginations, was not the merchandise, not the new gear they could own and take out with them, but the weathered mementos that others had left behind. What held their attention were the postcards, the photographs, the letters, the magnificently beat-up boots on our Wall of Fame. The store itself was a living book, a family album inscribed by generations of passing souls. I now share these stories because they were never mine. Like all life's blessings, they are borrowed. It is my hope that I've honoured their many owners, the dreamers, the wanderers, my neighbours in the wilderness, my friends, my family, and the late, great sky dog, by passing them on. Winton Porter, Mountain Crossings, August 2009. Chapter 1. Dream Big, Real Big. Atlanta, Wednesday, September the 22nd, 1993. I'm trying to concentrate on the teacher's assignment, but I'm distracted by the rain at the window. A slender stream finds its way through a cracked seal and feeds a puddle on the sill. I'm attending the first of 3 management courses that Recreational Equipment Inc., REI, has scheduled for the week as the final preparation before beginning my new job with the company in Salt Lake City. The task I've been given is simple. In 15 minutes, write down 50 things you want to achieve or do in your life. The trainer running the session helpfully told me there are no right or wrong answers. I stare at the blank sheet of paper and the old silver Parker pen begins its usual propeller motion between my fingers, a habit that generally jumpstarts my thoughts. 9 minutes later, I've poured out a river of dreams and wants, plans, possibilities, fantasies. As it happens, I've also written down my own future on that page. As goal number 22, own an outdoor shop in the mountains with my dad. Fast forward to May the 15th, 2001 at 1:33 p.m. At the very place and in the very mountains that provided the vision that moved my Parker pen, goal number 22 came true. I learned that if you can find your canvas, you can paint your picture. This is the story of my crossroads canvas and the wackos, heroes and friends who have passed across it like brushstrokes. It's their story too. The historic stone building where our story takes place is called Mountain Crossings at Wallacey, pronounced Wallacey, near the town of Blairsville in the North Georgia mountains. It houses the outfitter, hiker hostel, grocery store, backwoods mail drop, gift shop, picnic spot and sometime barbecue joint that is both my personal business and my former residence. Built by the Civilian Conservation Corps beginning in 1934, the facility was finished in 1937, incidentally the same year in which the Appalachian Trail, AT, was completed. The AT itself runs through the structure, down a breezeway separating the store from the residential building. This is the only place on the entire AT where the trail passes under a roof. From here it's about 30 miles to the AT's southern terminus at the summit of Springer Mountain. It's about 2,178 miles to the northern terminus atop Mount Katahdin in Maine, 13 states away. By my calculation, the climbs along the route between here and there, taken together, amount to 27 Everests. In the past 5 years, between 1,100 and 1,500 hikers have been venturing out each year to walk the entire trail, according to the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, ATC. Most of them start out in Georgia in the cool of early spring and move north as summer comes on. Again, according to the ATC, a majority of them, 70 to 75%, will not make it all the way to Maine. But nearly all of those southern starters will reach Mountain Crossings at the intersection of Neels Gap and Gainesville Highway after a 4-day hike from Springer Mountain. This procession of wandering souls over these years has provided me a window into the human spirit in all its imperfection. What I've come to realise is that there are truly no ordinary moments in life. While Atlanta, 88 miles to the south, has undergone a rapid transformation from regional rail hub to sprawling metropolis, the old grey stone building hasn't changed much since 1937. A forest of 750,000 acres of hemlocks, Fraser firs, live oaks, red spruces, mountain laurels, flame azaleas and sassafrasses surrounds Mountain Crossings. Visitors from the city often tell me that they can smell the difference. Mountain Crossings is situated at the base of Blood Mountain, the summit of which, at 4,458 feet, is the highest point on the AT in Georgia. There are various theories regarding the origin of the mountain's memorable name. Some believe, for example, that the appellation derives from the colour of the lichens and the Catawba rhododendrons growing near the rocky summit. The more vivid and more locally popular account is that the name comes from a great Indian battle fought on the mountain 3 centuries ago, in which the Cherokee defeated the Creeks and so claimed possession of a place they considered holy. According to this legend, the mountain was named for the blood of the fallen, and the battlefield was the place we now call Slaughter Gap. Over the past 3/4 of a century, the building has shared her covered breezeway with millions of people from around the world, starting with the 300 young men of Civilian Conservation Corps Company No. 431, who built Wallacey from 1934 to 1937. The team celebrated the completion with a ceremonial passing through the breezeway on May 18, 1937. A long procession of wandering souls has left its footprint under the protective covering since then, wearing a smooth groove in the old stone footpath that stretches exactly 7 casual strides. Some members of this procession have become legendary among folks around here. Earl Schaefer, Crazy Number 1, is considered to be the first to hike the entire AT in one season, in 1948. Gene Espy, Crazy Number 2, repeated Schaefer's performance in 1951. Emma Grandma Gatewood may have been the craziest of them all. With little more than a shower curtain for a tent, an old army blanket, and a pair of Keds basketball shoes, she in 1955 became the first woman to hike the trail, a 67-year-old mother of 11 who would do it 2 more times by the time she turned 75. The incredible Bill Irwin, with some help from his dog Orient, became the first blind person to thru-hike the AT in 1990. To walk on the trail is partly to join the company of these legends, to share their experience. But people have their own private purposes too, the things they can't share. I meet men and women who take to the trail because they are courageous, or half crazy, or lonesome. Often they are determined to prove something to themselves, and very often they are just too stubborn or foolish to imagine they might fail. Sometimes they just drift into the woods because they don't mind where they go. I believe that the trail offers an experience of life on the level that was intended for us, life away from the misery of traffic jams, the cramp of cubicles, the senseless arrogance of tall buildings. I have plenty of customers who must disagree. I see them wandering in the parking lot with their cell phones, looking for the magic patches of service, asking each other, "Are you getting reception?" But the breezeway does not discriminate. It welcomes us all. It puts up with all the different visions of itself. That makes mountain crossings no ordinary place. One of my first unusual experiences happened one early morning in late May of 2001, just after I took over the shop, as I was preparing for an early run up Blood Mountain. The sun was starting to crest the hills and clouds were sitting very low just above the roof. The effect of this combination was that the light of sunrise was refracted at a shallow angle through the very low clouds, and golden light poured into the breezeway. I've been fortunate to see this spectacular display on many mornings. I call it Godlight, since I can't help but imagine the high notes sung by a heavenly choir when I see it. I was standing on the trail in front of the breezeway admiring the light. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath and tried to relax and absorb the moment. My stomach had been turning for months from the stress of buying the business, selling our house and leveraging our family's entire life savings for a dream. It was the sort of strain that sets in after a big, life-changing move, as though I was struggling to remember, and now that I was here, just why I'd come. What if I was one of those people who just drifted into the woods? What was my purpose here? My wife, Margie, had been hesitant but supportive. If she didn't believe in what I was doing, she wouldn't let it show. But I knew she was nervous. Our 4-year-old daughter, Sierra, had been asked to leave the comforts of a picket-fenced house, friends, trampolines and swimming pools, to live in hills full of banjos, backpacks and long-bearded hikers who looked homeless to the eyes of a city girl. As for Alison, our second daughter, well, she was just a few weeks old and hadn't voiced any opinions thus far. With my eyes closed, I moved into my pre-run stretching routine, first relaxing the neck, moving down to the hips, slowly reaching down to grab the ankles, then repeating. It was then that I heard a voice off my right shoulder. I opened one eye, thinking, "Oh shit, I must look like a freak standing here, twisting around like an idiot." I opened the other eye, but didn't see anything. I turned full circle, but no one was around. I closed my eyes again and raised my hands above my head, trying to look less stupid if caught in the stretch move. The voice spoke again. This time I made out a few words. The voice said, "Look up, smile and dance." No longer afraid of seeming foolish, I turned and said, to the air, "What?" The voice repeated, "Look up, smile and dance." It was barely audible. I jerked my head to the left to listen. Now I was sure that the voice had come from behind me. At the same time, I started hearing drums beating beyond my left shoulder, somewhere deep in the hollow. Forgetting the voice, or rather trying to shake it out of my head, I trained my ears on the rhythmic beat of the drums, and I started walking toward the sound. I wanted a better glimpse of whoever in hell was beating drums at this early hour. The beat shifted behind me again, just off my right shoulder. I snapped my head in that direction and moved quickly. Now the sounds seemed to be coming from behind the building. I had arrived at the balcony overlook when the drum beat split. The sounds skipped off in two different directions and faded into the silence of the valley below. For a moment, I stood absolutely still on the overlook. A chill mixed with intermittent moments of warmth danced through and around my body. For maybe 10 or 15 seconds, it felt as if a group of tiny children, small as sparks, were singing, laughing, and running around and through me. When this euphoria lifted, my head felt light but clear, and my focus gradually returned to the landscape before me. Then, as I gazed over the balcony into the rich forest below, a new feeling relaxed me so much that my knees shimmied briefly. Again, it seemed impossible to focus my eyes on any one thing. Then silence filled the air. I sat on that balcony for another 10 minutes, watching and listening and trying to decipher the words. The sun started to rise over the edge of the ridge, greeting the lightly clouded valley below. What happened that day seemed to be an introduction to what lay ahead. Was it a welcome or a warning? The voice and the drums have never returned. As I write this now, 8 years have passed. I would be the last to describe what happened as a religious experience. Spiritual, maybe. Heavenly spirits didn't float over my head, and an image of Mother Mary didn't appear in a half-eaten power bar lying on the ground. The episode reached beyond religious connotations. I wasn't just a spectator presented with something to worship. Instead, I felt connected, for an instant, with everything around me at once. After years of reflection, it seems to me that the voices and drums I heard that early spring morning confirmed or clarified that the decision I had made was sound. I had risked everything to pursue and live my dream. I had quit my high-paying job. I had ransacked our savings for every dime to buy this business, to purchase this inventory. After writing goal number 22 in that long-ago management class, I had made the choice to become a participant in my life, not just a spectator. It was time to look up, to smile, and dance. My own dance.